Today we got something a little special for y'all. Whoa. Look, a little behind the scenes. Filmception. Anyhow, today I'm going to be demonstrating for you guys the ancient art of lead work. We got a little bit of a situation with this quarter panel. I'll show you guys shortly what's going on. But I've only done lead a handful of times throughout the years. I was fortunate enough to get to learn from someone who did it in the 50s and 60s. So when I learned it, I learned the method with muriatic acid and all the nasty stuff that people don't use nowadays. So if you search around, you're going to find a lot of videos right now of people that use like the Eastwood kit with the tinning butter and stuff like that. The method I'm going to be doing today is actually a little bit different, and it's something that could be helpful. It's definitely more toxic. So see, I got gloves on already. I got the whole suit on. We're going to be putting the full face respirator on. We're doing the whole 9 yards, right? No one here is trying to get Sancer today. You can look up all the nasty stuff that lead does. What I'm going to be doing today is demonstrating the whole rundown and everything on, tinning and doing all that. Whether or not you guys want to do this on your project, I don't know. I mean, you're watching a lead work video, so you might have some interest in it. The cool thing about lead is it remains malleable after it's cured and on the surface and everything. But it is still very rigid and it does bond to the metal really well. So for the repair like we have to do today is actually kind of ideal, and you guys will see why. All right, so this is what we're dealing with, right? This thing must have gotten tapped pretty hard in the back, or got backed up into a curb or something and smashed up pretty good. And then someone tried to fix it by what looks like just smashing the dent outwards from the inside with like a pry bar or something, and then putting like this much Bondo over it. So what I did was all this through here was caved in pretty bad. It was in about yay. And I got all this stuff hammer dollied and picked out with the dent puller. All this stuff up here got pretty well close. So it's within, I'd say, maybe a 1/16 of an inch now of where it should be. There are some spots here where the dent was the worst. That's got like some nasty pick marks and some divots and stuff. And then back through here, the sheet metal is actually so thin, but also very tight, that we couldn't really do much pulling on it. So we were kind of at a point where we only really had maybe, 2 options in my eyes. So first is what we're doing now, which is putting some lead on it. And for something like this, it's fine. It's low down. It's hardly ever going to be seen. And at the thickness it's going to go on, I don't think that lead's going to go anywhere. It doesn't really pose an issue longevity-wise, right? We also have some issues with there being little holes and stuff, things like that from all the whatever repair that was done before, right? So it's a bit boogered up, right? The only other option that I would have seen to really tackle this would be completely cutting it out, reforming it and stuff. And they're not really looking to go that deep on this, right? You're talking hours and hours, and that's also completely out of the wheelhouse of anyone in this shop, right? I don't think anyone's going to be hand forming any sheet metal panels for this thing here. So lead it is, right? So we're going to go through. We already wire wheeled all this stuff real nice and clean. It's been sanded with 80 grit. And I'm going to wipe over it with a little bit of acetone, just get it cleaned up. And then we're going to start with some real nasty, terrible, life-threatening chemicals. So we just got some acetone on a clean rag. We're going to go ahead and give this all a real nice wipe. Scrub any little pits of rust and stuff that we saw. We went over it with a little burr on a Dremel and got it all cleaned out, and then wire wheeled everything again. So we're feeling pretty good with where we're at in terms of surface preparation and stuff like that. Depending on what torch you're using, like in this, I'm using an oxyacetylene torch, right? So I'm I'm turning the oxygen down so that it's not a super hot flame. I'm just really trying to get the surface nice and warm, but not too hot. This isn't like an exact science. With a smaller torch, like a propane or MAP gas, something you might get from like Ace Hardware, this might take a little bit more time, but you can see I got a nice big fat flame on this guy, and we're just going around and kind of getting the panel warmed up so that the acid will really bite in when we wipe this thing down. The acid that we're using for this step is the Harris Stay Clean. This is a liquid flux and it works really well. It really bites into the surface. I believe this stuff is chemically, it's hydrochloric acid, I believe. There's a bunch of different chemicals that you can use for this. If you do some research online, you'll be able to find a lot of the old school guys talking about all the different types of acids that they used to use. Where this differs from the tinning butter is that this, it's essentially the tinning process is broken down into 2 steps, as opposed to the tinning butter where the acid is mixed with a lead powder, kind of trying to do the whole step all in one. Now what we're doing is tinning the surface. So essentially all that we're doing is heating up the surface of the sheet metal and the lead bar to the point where the lead is malleable and soft, and I'm going around and just smearing the lead bar into the surface, kind of like a crayon essentially, to just introduce the lead into the sheet metal to get it all to start to bond together. And this is really just forming a base for the lead to build up on top of later on. Once you've got the whole surface kind of tinned up a little bit, you'll have some unevenness in the lead. You'll have some areas where it's on a little thicker, a little thinner. And what I'm doing here is I just have a little piece of steel wool on the end of a vice grip, and I'm going around and just kind of wiping that lead just to get a whole nice even coat on there and make sure that everything is, nice and smooth and the buildup isn't too thick on the tinning step. You can also use just a rag for this as well, as long as you're not, lighting the rag on fire with the torch, obviously. Once it's all nice and shiny and clean, we're gonna go ahead and start building up our lead. This is the most difficult part. Essentially, you're just trying to get that bar to the point that the end of it is soft, and you'll see the bar actually start to warp a little bit under the heat, and that's how you know that it's ready for it to go onto the surface. You're going to be kind of doing a little bit of a dance with the torch, so you got to keep the surface of the sheet metal hot while you're also warming up the end of the lead bar so that you can press it into the surface. And once you got your build up and you're happy with where it's at, the next step is to heat up your tallow or whatever kind of wax you're using on your paddles. Get your paddle with a little bit of wax on it. It's good to, we didn't film it, but we actually take the paddles and I run it over a little Scotch-Brite pad so it thins out the wax so it's not built up too heavy. And then all we're doing here is getting the lead to the point where it's super soft, but not to the point where it's running off the panel. With a hot torch like an acetylene torch, this is a lot more of a dance. And with something like a propane torch, you can heat it up a little bit more because it's not a super toasty flame. We're trying to get it to the point where I can make a real nice smooth surface, kind of like what I'm doing here. Get rid of all those lumps and bumps from the lead and just kind of essentially starting to put some shape back into the panel. And here you can see we've kind of got it to a point where I'm pretty happy with how smoothed out this is. There's a little bit of acetylene goop here or there, but it'll all file off, it'll all sand out. First step is to just run over it with a real coarse file and kind of get a real basic shape started. These old school body files are really good for this part. You could use a heavier grit sandpaper like a 36 on a block, but keep in mind that once you do start getting into sandpapers and not files, that you should definitely put the respirator on, because once you're creating a real fine dust like I am here with the DA sander, you want to make sure that you're not breathing that stuff in, because it will actually get airborne. With the lead files, the particles are normally large enough that they're just kind of falling down onto the ground and you're not worried about them catching air. But yeah, definitely if you're sanding, make sure that you're wearing some kind of PPE or something to stop from breathing in those lead particles, because you don't want those in your body. The last step, and very important step, make sure you guys do not forget this. I see a lot of videos online, people talking about lead, and they don't talk about the neutralizing step. So make sure when you're all done, you get some nice hot tap water, pour in some baking soda. It's not an exact science, you're just trying to make a very neutral solution. So dump a bunch of baking soda in your water, your hot water, and then we're gonna go around and you're gonna just scrub the crap out of it. Here I did a microfiber, and then I went back over it with a wet Scotch pad, and then I actually went ahead and dumped the water over top of the surface afterwards when I was all done, and then wiped it with another clean rag.
Can I have a pair of needle nose?
What you doing in there, bud?
I'm trying to stretch a headliner.
Oh shit. Well, what do you think? She's all leady. So the goal was to just fill the worst of it and get all the nasty little dimples and everything all filled in, and kind of give this corner through here a little bit more shape, because it was all crushed in right here pretty good. Get this seam leaded over so that it was all smoothed out, and then we did the one on the other side over here too. So both the seams are all leaded, and it'll be real nice and slick back here. All in all, I'd say pretty darn good for not having done lead in like probably over a year. Right? Was Dom's car the last one? But if you guys enjoyed this and you got value out of this video, then make sure you go watch the other videos on the channel. And if you don't, then I'm going to send you hate mail. Thanks for watching.